Welcome back to QAV America, Tony. This is episode 21. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Cam. Celebrated
That's
Father's
good.
Day this weekend. It was good. Hope everyone out there did the same.
No, they're Americans, Tony. They celebrate Father's Day in a completely different time of year to
Oh, that's
us.
right. You're right.
Mm.
Well, Australians did anyway. I was going to segue that into hope they all got their small packages, but can't do that
They're
now.
small packages. Huh?
Yeah, they're Father's Day gifts from Australia, which have been held up.
Oh, that's a reference to the fact that Australia Post has stopped shipping packages to the United
Mm,
States because of the de minimis
mm, mm.
rule changes. We were just talking on our Australian podcast about the state of the economy in the US. Second lot of weak job numbers has just come through. And as I pointed out in the last episode, all of the reasons that we've been talking about over the last 6 months or so on this show, according to the failing New York Times, as the president likes to refer to it, analysts offered a variety of explanations for the slowdown. The president's tariffs on nearly all imports have driven up costs for companies and prices for consumers. Mr. Trump's immigration crackdown has made it harder for many businesses to find workers, while simultaneously reducing the need for them because they now have fewer customers. The federal government has cut jobs directly and cancelled grants and contracts that have bled into the private sector. The uncertainty surrounding Mr. Trump's ever-shifting policies has made corporate executives more cautious about hiring and investing. So, who would have guessed that putting Donald Trump back in the White House would lead to chaos and uncertainty? Tony? No, certainly not me. That was not on my bingo list. I thought, here's a man who's calm and the most stable genius I've ever seen. So it's deeply surprising to me. What about you?
Yeah, surprising to all the Republicans, I would have thought, who acquiesced. Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't access the New York Times because it's a paywall, and I'm not going to sign up to the New York Times. I'll stick with the Wall Street Journal.
What do
But
they have to say?
no, same, probably the same
Right.
article reprinted. Uh, anyway,
Well, as I'm going to do a pulled pork this week on an interesting company, MEO. They're a methanol. Well, they're the 800-pound gorilla in the methanol space, which is interesting because I know or knew before this nothing about methanol. But before I do that, I just want to give a portfolio performance update. Our US portfolio is up about 7.6% in the last 30 days versus the S&P 500, which is up 1.65%. Since inception, which is September 2023, our US portfolio is up 74% versus the S&P 500 up 46%. Year to date, though, we are still struggling. We're down 7.2% year to date, calendar year to date, versus 10.43 for the S&P because of some of Mr. Trump's policies that tanked our portfolio at the beginning of the year. But over a 1-year time frame, we are up 31% versus 20% for the S&P 500. So despite having a rough start to the year, we're still looking pretty. I'll also just mention the companies that I've done pulled porks on over the last 20 episodes on this show. ZEPP, in order of best stories, ZEPP, the Chinese smartwatch company that I covered on the 11th of July, is now up 1,511% since then. It's just
oh
not
dear.
slowing down. It is down 4% today, but it's just not slowing down. Grey Media is up 40%. Titan Machinery is up 11% since we talked about it. Precision Drilling is up 18%. Oryx Corporation up 27%. IHS Holding up 37%. Ford is up 8% since we talked
Okay.
about it. Chemex is up 68%. Danaos is up 16%. Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce is up 23%. Jackson Financial up 16%. POSCO's up 5%. Sasol is up 43% since I talked about it in July. I said they were a dirty
Yeah.
business they were in, and they're up 43%. Bausch Health Companies is up 16%. Seneca Foods is up 9%. Kimball Electronics is up 7%. Suzano, that I talked about last week, though, is down 2% since last week. So there you go. Then there's also Zim, which is down 26% since we talked about it back in March. And Enel Chile is down 10%. But the rest of them doing quite well. Well, with that out of the way, let me talk to you a tale of MEOH, Tony. MEOH, MEOH is the ticker code for Methanex. I'm calling it MEOH, though. We're talking about the world's biggest methanol producer. That's who these guys are. Headquarters in Vancouver. Plants all over the map. Louisiana, Canada, Chile, New Zealand, Trinidad, and Egypt. But I'm going to preface this, as I did last week, by saying that the underlying commodity for Methanex, which is methanol, is a Josephine. So for new listeners, we chart underlying commodities on a 3-point trend line, looking at month-end prices over a 5-year graph. And when a price has been in decline, we classify it as a Josephine. It could also be a sell, but this isn't a sell. It's not below its sell line. It's above the sell line, below the buy line. So it's a Josephine. So we wouldn't, what that means is, regardless of the numbers I'm going to talk you through with Methanex today, we wouldn't buy it. We don't have any room in our portfolio anyway, but if we did, we wouldn't buy it until the underlying commodity gets back into a buy territory, because we've learned from experience that prices tend to follow the underlying commodity price, which makes sense.
So what's methanol used for, Cam?
Tony, I'm glad you asked. Thank you for asking, Tony.
You're welcome.
Methanol's used for pretty much everything. It's the Lego of the chemical world. It's used in millions and millions of different things, including making crystal meth, as we all learned from Breaking Bad. It's precursor to methylamine, I think, is what they had to hijack trucks or trains in the desert in wherever they were, New Mexico, New something. Anyway, methanol is the simplest alcohol, CH3OH. It's a clear liquid. It burns cleanly, mixes with almost anything, mostly made from natural gas, methane. Then you catalyze it into methanol. It's used in plastics, paints, adhesives, resins. It's blended into fuels, biodiesel, gasoline. And the big future for it is something called e-methanol, which is formed from CO2 and green hydrogen, and it's a low-carbon marine fuel. All those tankers moving...
Yeah, right.
Well, but based on President Trump's tariffs, we won't have to worry about shipping stuff around countries anymore, because it'll all be made in America. But not by immigrants, though. By good Americans. We'll be working factories for $1 a day and happy that they have a job that hasn't been taken by a robot or AI yet. But basically, it's the Lego brick of the chemical world. Cheap, versatile, snaps into more complex stuff.
Don't stand on it with bare feet.
And, well, I was going to say, like Legos, don't eat it because it's highly, highly toxic and can kill you. So don't get it in your eyes. Don't breathe it in. Don't get anywhere near it in its raw state. And that's one of the problems, as we'll see. But Methanex, MEOH, is the world's largest methanol producer, as I said. They not only produce it, they run their own fleet of tankers, which is good. Bit of vertical integration, probably also why they want to have their own shipping product, fuel product, marine product.
Oh, of course.
And it also means they can shift supply to whichever region is paying best at a fairly low cost. And these guys run a really efficient, low-cost operation. It's one of the reasons why they're on our buy list. They go back to a company called Ocelot Industries, which was like a oil and gas company, 1968 in Calgary, pivoted to methanol in the 1980s, became Methanex. And they've survived despite the government policies around the world regarding methanol being pretty volatile, as is methanol, over the last 50 years, which I'll talk about. But first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the methanol market. It's global, it's priced in USD. The big markets are China, Europe, South America, Korea. 22% of the market is in China. They use it for fuel blending and plastics feedstock. Don't know if you know this, Tony, but a lot of plastic stuff gets made in China. They use a lot of methanol. Europe and the US use it for chemical intermediates and some energy. South America and Korea use it for a whole bunch of different things. The basic price drivers for the methanol market are natural gas costs, oil and naphtha spreads, competition for fuel, and regulation, both in terms of what you can put in your fuel and also rules around what can be used and when it can be used, in like marine rules and those sorts of things. Bottom line is the prices swing hard. There's a lot of inputs, a lot of variables, and it's a fairly choppy market that you have to have deep pockets to be able to navigate successfully year in and year out, which these guys seem to have done a good job doing over decades. They have massive scale, so they have massive price influence. Their posted price often sets the market for North America and Asia. They're market makers, effectively. They also have a low-cost gas advantage. They have this site called Geimar in Louisiana. They just recently opened G3, Geimar 3, a third plant there. But it is world-class cheap supply. A lot of methane in Louisiana, Tony. I guess a lot of swamps, a lot of a lot of swamp. I'm thinking Tony. What's his name? Who's the swamp blues guy? Way out in Louisiana, where the alligators grow so green, there was a girl who I swear to the world made the alligators look tame. Poke salad Annie, a gator got your granny. No,
I know
Poke
the
salad
song. I don't know
Annie.
who sang it. Yeah.
Well, Elvis covered it.
He did.
Poke Salad Annie, originally sung by and written by Tony Joe White. Yeah, I think he passed away not that long ago. Yeah, 2018. Nicknamed the Swamp Fox. Best known for his hits Poke Salad Annie, 1969, and Rainy Night in Georgia, which he wrote, but which was first made popular by Brooke Benton in 1970. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
He also wrote songs for Tina Turner, Elvis Presley, Tom Jones. There you go. I love me a bit of Tony Joe White, the Swamp Fox. Go check him out on Spotify after this if you haven't heard. Like, just had that sort of what you'd expect somebody called the Swamp Fox's voice would be. Way down in Louisiana, where the alligators. Anyway, back to methanol.
Oh, no, keep going. This is
don't have time. Got a kung fu class. So, although I hurt my back last week, my hip's been out. I went to my physio on Saturday. She said my hip's out, my shoulder's out, my right ankle was out. So that's kung fu for you. But she put my hip back in, but I left it too late. I tweaked it, and it sort of, it had been compensating on the side that was out. And
yep. Know all about it.
Anyway, yeah, it hurts. Anywho, as I said, they have a diversified footprint. So if Egypt runs short of gas, they can move their production around to other plants. They've got a very large, very sophisticated operation. They've got this new capacity, as I said, just came online in mid-2024, Geimar 3. They also have done a bunch of acquisitions in Texas, something called the High Fuels Platform. Basically, they've got scale and they're positioning their manufacturing as well as their output to a low carbon future. There's this whole idea of low carbon methanol, which, as far as I can tell, isn't very realistic. Today, I think I saw something like 0.2% of methanol production is low carbon at the moment, but there is some promise that it'll be low carbon in the future.
I'm
But some of the
guessing
risks.
methane is one of the biggest drivers of carbon emission. So this is a big carbon offender, I guess, if it's methanol.
Well, if you're capturing it and processing it, it burns cleanly, I think is the deal here.
Okay.
So we always hear about cow farts and
Yeah.
methane being a big contributor to climate change. But if you can capture the methane and synthesize it into methanol, it burns cleanly, I believe.
Burns cleanly,
But
really. Okay.
yeah, that's what my notes here say. Clear liquid burns cleanly. I'm not gonna stand trial on that if it goes to court, but that's what my research said. But the risks with these guys are some and many, varied. Methanol prices fall as they have been falling and they get stuck in the commodity cycle risk. There's supply is a little bit shaky in places like Trinidad and Egypt. Policy swings. So methanol and fuels have been banned and restricted before because of toxicity. If you get anywhere near methane, it becomes incredibly poisonous, as it turns out. I did an earlier version of my notes did have some numbers on this, but it's been removed in various different iterations. But it's like a small amount will make you go blind. Like I think 30 mils is potentially fatal. 10 mils I think will make you go blind. And I remember talking about this on one of my podcasts. I think it was my War on Drugs series on the Bullshit Filter years ago, talking about prohibition. So
Right.
one of the things that the US government in its wisdom did during prohibition, there was still industrial alcohol available in the US for industrial processes, and bootleggers were grabbing that and turning it into, drinkable alcohol and selling it. So they started mixing it with methanol, became methylated spirits, didn't affect the industrial uses, but if you drank it, it would kill you. And bootleggers grabbed it and sold it anyway, and thousands of people died from drinking this methylated alcohol, which the government did. Well, the government didn't sell it to them and force them to drink it, but they were mixing it in and didn't warn people effectively that if you drink this stuff, you will die. And people drank it and died. Thousands of people. So anyway, it is very toxic. As opposed to ethanol, which nice green hippie stuff. Everyone loves ethanol. Methanol, not so good. So that gets caught in this whole methanol war. Ethanol has a very positive public perception. Methanol has a very scary public perception. So there were some trials in the US in the 1990s and the 2000s for something called MTBE, methanol-based gasoline, basically, or gasoline additive. And they got banned because of groundwater contamination. That was a big issue. China also trialed some methanol-based fuel additives, but then pulled back, partly because of safety concerns, partly because state oil giants got upset and lobbied the Chinese government to stop doing it because it was affecting their revenues. This is in the 2010s. And then China pivoted to EVs, and so that market sort of collapsed. But there's still a big market for methanol, but it can get caught up in some of the politics of it being toxic. I've got some notes on the chemistry here. Ethanol has 2 carbons is what makes it different and is drinkable. Methanol has 1 carbon and is toxic. So there you go. Ethanol comes from crops. Methanol comes from gas or coal or CO2. Ethanol is widely blended into petrol, E10, E85, etc. Methanol blends exist, but are niche due to toxicity and compatibility. Industry use, though, ethanol is narrower. Methanol is the global industrial building block for all of those things I mentioned before: paints, plastics, basically
Yeah, right.
industrial chemistry, where safety is less of a concern because you're not drinking your paint. Unless it's a big night. Well, it's a big night, then okay. Eventually you end up on the paint, but my dad used to tell me that the alcoholics in my hometown would just buy methylated spirits and pour it through a loaf of white bread.
Correct. Yeah.
Not sure that actually works.
It was terrible out in Alice Springs, where the service stations would have metho and white bread in the fridge
Right.
to sell to people. I
Keep
witnessed that myself.
The meth was in the fridge. The methylated spirits was in the fridge too, so it was cold.
Yeah.
Wow.
And next door to the bread. It was like the only thing they didn't do was open a bar with like handing out slices.
Wow.
Mm.
So the basic bottom line is ethanol is politically popular biofuel, methanol is industrial poison, plus future shipping fuel, but still a huge market for it. But there could be a bigger market for it because of the shipping stuff. I think that's the big upside for these guys if they can get this right. Today's marine fuel is very dirty. There are a lot of demands for a replacement for marine fuel. Obviously, a large chunk of the carbon emissions that the world generates comes from shipping and transport in general, in terms of international transport, planes, boats, and the boats part of it is big. And as who's that guy who's written the books on energy I read a couple of years ago? I don't remember his name.
No, me
A
neither.
guy
Maybe
that
you're telling me about him.
Bill Gates put me onto him, not personally, but
Not
talks
personally.
about him a lot. No. But this guy's book was saying, all of this stuff about green energy is great, but you're not going to run ships and planes on batteries in the near future. It's just, or electrical. You're not going to have electrical planes. You're not going to have electrical ships in any foreseeable
Batteries are too heavy.
timeline. Too heavy, yeah, and just not enough power to, last the sort of duration that you need. You can't recharge them midair. Well, I guess maybe you could in the middle of the ocean. Anyway, an alternative is needed that is less destructive, and low carbon methanol, biomethanol or e-methanol, biomethanol from biomass, e-methanol from CO2 and green hydrogen, as I said before, is one possible solution. It's liquid at room temperature, easy to store, it's easy to retrofit engines, and it's a cleaner burn. So there are already some people adopting it. Maersk have 25 plus ships that are using it. Costco, CMA, CGM, Hyundai shipyards, ports worldwide are building bunkering systems for this. So it's happening. If it happens in an even bigger way, a lot of upside for Methanex. Some issues, though. I mean, supply gap is going to be one. Maersk alone need 5 to 6 million tons a year by 2030. It's a little bit higher cost. The whole green hydrogen plus the methane capture side of it is expensive. They're going to need lots of huge new plants that'll need to be built. So it's not without its issues. But Methanex's angle are they're the world's biggest producer. They own waterfront shipping with methanol-powered tankers. They can integrate these high hydrogen fuels, high fuels from their OCI acquisition recently. So it could be a multi-decade demand kicker for these guys if they get it right and it all comes to fruition. But that's forecasting, and we don't like to base anything on forecasting.
Because all sorts of things could happen. If methane does become a fuel, why wouldn't Shell and BP and all the other big oil companies get into it as well?
Sure. They've also got some big problems that I'll talk about, including a securities fraud cloud that they're in the middle of at the moment. Actually, I'll talk about that first. So in February, March of this year, their new plant, Geimar 3, had an outage, and they didn't really disclose it until March 9th, and the stock dropped 13% in a day. Now there are a handful of law firms that are investigating why there was this delayed disclosure on behalf of shareholders. No lawsuits or regulator action yet, but it could be big and it could be messy if it turns out that they knew something that they didn't disclose. The plant restarted in May 2025. Operations are back to normal, but there's this possible litigation overhang. Governance credibility is at stake. Potential settlement costs could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. We don't really know. But there you go. So they've got some problems on that side of things as well. That might be why it's at a bit of a discount, apart from also the methanol price being in the doldrums at the moment.
Did you red flag them because of governance?
Oh, well, we would if they were an Australian company, wouldn't we? Yeah, we would red flag them. Yeah. Good point. Okay, I'm red flagging them.
Just run through the issue again. So they had a plant closure, which they didn't disclose. Is there any reason for that?
Yeah, look, it said that needed maintenance, but they didn't give advance warning about the fact that this plant that had just come online 9 months earlier was going to be shut down for a couple of months. The reasons behind it's not clear. So there are lawyers looking into it, trying to figure out what's really went on and why. Obviously, they didn't give the market advance notice. I think the share price was pumping because this new plant had just come online, which is, maximum, increasing their capacity, et cetera, et cetera. Then all of a sudden it shut down for a few months. So yeah, we should probably flag them for governance, although we don't know the reason. We never know the reasons behind it, do we? Well, anyway, let me talk about
because they haven't told us.
Yeah. I mean, they did put out something. Let me pull up my notes here on it's not listed in my notes. Yeah, there was something in an earlier version of my notes about what their story was, but it was sufficiently vague that here we go. Due to issues with its autothermal reformer. I mean, I've don't know about you, but I've had lots of issues with my autothermal reformer, Tony. The autothermal reformer, you never really, you never really be sure of those.
When was that, Ken? Yeah. What was the date?
Late February, they experienced an unplanned outage.
Okay, so
from issues with the plant's autothermal reformer, yeah.
So they will have released new numbers since then, so the market can digest that. And so it's probably okay not to red flag it.
Yeah, okay. No red flag then. Talking about the numbers, though, I mean, the big one, of course, for us, as always, is price to operating cash flow, which is 2.76 times. Dividend yield is 1.9%. Petrovsky F-score is a 7 out of 9. Book value growth is 7.5% CAGR. And the price to book is 1.14 times. So cheap on a lot of our metrics. The price is above our IV hurdles, though. But I'll run through the numbers. Average daily trade, 22 million, so pretty big. Quality rank on Stockopedia is a 68. We give it a score if it's over 60. The stock rank is below 90, though, so we don't score it on that. Stock rank is 77. F-score, though, as I said, is a 7. We score it if it's over 4.5, so financial health score is quite good. Prices above our IV1 and our IV2. It is, however, below book plus 30. It's above book just slightly, as I said, but very close to book. It's below book plus 30. Doesn't have a new 3-point upturn, but the book value growth is positive. What else have I got it scored on? That's about it. The forecast IV is not greater than twice the share price. The yield is not greater than the bank debt. PE is not less than the yield. All in all, I scored it 8 out of 12, 67% for our quality score and a QAV score of 0.24, which is a pretty good score for us.
Yeah.
Fundamentals are good. Market cap's around about 3 billion US. Share price, just for the record, closed at about $38.61. But yeah, the major problem I would have with it right now is the methanol price is still pretty low. It's just above its sell line, actually. So we would want to see the methanol price get back into a positive territory before we added it to a portfolio. I'll put it in my tracker, though, just to keep an eye on it, just for shits and giggles.
And as we said on the Australian show, the oil price is down and OPEC are thinking of increasing supply. So if that's a big feed into this methanol conversion, which it sounds like it is, then their input price to what they produce will go down, which means their margin should go up.
Yeah, I don't know, though. I think that as a fuel, methanol and oil might be competitors.
Oh, I thought you said before they were taking oil and then converting it into methanol. And what's their base crude stock?
Well, it's methane, right, which is a gas. I mean, they need oil to run their plants and everything, I'm
Okay.
sure. So
I
it's a
thought you said
component
before.
of
Okay.
operations.
Right.
But I'm not
Okay. I thought you said before it
sure.
was an input. So where does methane come from? Is it from natural gas? Are they fracking natural gas?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure if they're fracking it, but they're getting natural gas out of somewhere from all of these plants,
Yeah. Okay.
all of these operations.
And natural gas does tend to move in lockstep with the oil price, or at least has some kind of relationship to the oil price.
Yeah, I think oil is a component of their supply chain, but I think it's also a competitor in terms of end fuel products to an extent. So if the oil price comes down, that may make methane-based fuels more attractive. Might also be a competitor in terms of some of the chemical ingredients that are used for producing plastics and paints. I'm not sure. That's out of my depth, Tony.
Mine too.
But yeah, anyway, there you go. That's Meow Methanol producer. Of course, crystal meth too, I'm sure, is a big market. So not sure where the crystal meth market is. Donald Trump cracks down on Mexican and Venezuelan drug imports into the United States. Maybe there's a big market for domestic crystal meth production. Maybe he's putting tariffs on crystal meth coming in over the
Well, that
border.
was going to be a question I had, because it's a Canadian-based company. There'd be tariffs on their production imports into the US if they were doing it in Canada, which might
Yeah,
happen.
but the Louisiana plants are all in
Yeah, right.
the US. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, how it breaks down. I'm sure they've got some complicated mathematic algorithms to work out their tariffs, but yeah. Anywho, that is Methanex. Keep an eye on it and see what you think, folks. Do your own
Yeah, thanks, Cameron.
research. Not a
Yeah.
recommendation, but an interesting business that
Mhm.
seems to be fairly priced at the moment.
And as we say, very different to businesses in Australia. We wouldn't have talked about a methane producer at all.
And I got to tell you, I did a new US buy list yesterday to prepare for this, and it was enormous. Like there
Oh,
were hundreds of things to look at.
wow.
Most of them were shipping and financials companies still.
Yep.
I'm just opening up my buy list, my US buy list, and I'll tell you.
I'm guessing the shipping companies are doing it tough because of the tariffs, I would have thought.
Yeah, but well, shipping companies have been on our US buy list since well before
Yeah,
the
true.
Trump administration. I mean, I know there were some tariffs left over from the first time around, and there
Hmm.
was a whole bunch of COVID related issues and some global supply chains and wars and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, shipping companies and financial services companies galore on the US buy list for some reason. But I
Interesting. I
look for
noticed
different things to talk about.
we're coming through the reporting season in the US, so maybe the new figures are triggering extra stocks on the buy list. I'm not sure.
The new numbers may have an effect, but here we like. Let me tell you this. Like, hold on, let me look at this. There were 205 companies, and that's just the ones with a score greater than 0.1, which is an arbitrary cutoff that we come up with. It's really, there's just value everywhere popping up. Grey Media is still at the top of the buy list, by the way. QAV score of 1.12, even though the price is up 40% since I talked about it a month ago. It's still at the top of the buy list with a quality score of 85%. So there you go. Anyway, thank you, Tony. Got to go to Kung Fu, see how my back goes.
Yeah, watch out for your hip.
Yeah.
Get better at
Thanks,
defending
TK.
yourself. Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. Have a good week.